Welcome back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. Man, we got a lot to talk about. Michael Russo is in Colorado preparing to cover another seemingly big Wild game. Since the last time we talked, we have had trades, a trip to Costa Rica, a trip to the hospital. Michael valeted for the newest Wild player. We've had firings around the NHL, and Michael spent a game talking to Pierre McGuire. So we have tons to get to. We'll get some Twitter questions today, but this is going to be a loaded show. Thanks to Twill and the Edina Galleria. Dulono's Pizza, next live show, Monday night, 6 p.m., January 28th. Please come down. We had a nice big crowd last time. A lot of great people. We have a blast. Come down to Dulono's Pizza, downtown Minneapolis, right by Ramsey. Thanks to FixologyRepair.com and Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin. Reminder, if you want to advertise with us, you can reach us at talknorthpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks to our producer, Brandon Morton. Please download before you listen, and please follow us at Talk North Pod on Twitter. I don't know where to start, Michael. There's so much to get to. Why don't we start with the news, which is that Fenton, Mr. Trader, has now started making trades.
Yeah, I think it took him half a season to really start to analyze his team, and I think he's felt a lot of pressure lately with the team being up and down that he's got to start making moves to tinker with this lineup. Use a different word than tweak. And that he's done the last week. He made 3 trades in 6 days, including the departure of Nino Niederreiter. And now, I mean, frankly, there could be a lot more. He is really looking at this team. He's not happy with it. And I think what drives him nuts is the same thing that's driven all of us nuts for years, is that you never know what you're going to get with them. Some nights they're world beaters. Some nights they make you want to punch a hole in the wall. Some nights they can go into Vegas and play so well, and the next night they can absolutely lay an egg against the Detroit Red Wings. There's a reason why they're 6-1 since Christmas against teams that have 59 or more points, and 2 of 5 against pretty much the cellar dwellers in the NHL. And by the way, that one loss is against the Penguins on New Year's Eve, where they actually played quite well. So they're just they're a mind-boggling team at times, and I think that he's trying to make some moves. And by the way, after the All-Star break and the bye coming up, they have 14 games in 26 days.
Oof.
Again, the trade deadline is February 25th. He's going to really be watching to see if he's going to sell pieces off like Eric Stahl, or if he can potentially add. But the danger in adding is that he probably wants to make hockey trades, because this is a team that's gotten into a cycle where they trade prospects and picks every time they want to make a trade, and it's gotten them in a position where they don't have a ton of high-end prospects. So it's an interesting thing. This next month is going to really shape the next little while about what this Wild team looks like.
Interesting. I know when I wrote about all this the other day, right before the Nino trade, I looked at the roster, I looked at the salaries, the contracts, and I came to the conclusion the most logical person to trade in terms of getting return would probably be Granlund. Nino was an easier guy to trade because he had played a smaller and smaller role in this team and was making a lot of money. Of the core players, who do you think the next logical move could be?
I think it's Granlund.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the nature of his contract. He's got 1 year left, and he wants a significant raise. And if he was gonna ask for $8-9 million a year, I'm sorry, you got to move him. He's not an $8-9 million player.
Right.
And it's that simple. And I think the Wild are starting to realize that they've given contracts, big contracts, to a lot of players on this team that inhibits proper return. So you're trading Nino at an all-time low because nobody will take his contract. Then you finally find somebody to take his contract, and you're forced to take another bad contract back. And if all of a sudden you give Nino $8-9 million a year, he's probably untradeable. And I think that the fact that Nino and Zucker got paid and then have been big-time disappointments is one thing that's starting to scare Fenton in a giant way. And so I don't think that it would happen in the next month. I don't think now's the time that you trade Granlund. It usually doesn't happen in season, but I do think he's absolute trade bait. And then the other guy that I really still think is Zucker. I think that we all thought that when he got his 5-year deal that cemented him here for the majority of that. But I think the Wild are starting to be really disappointed with his play. And again, he has a modified no trade that kicks in July 1. Well, this is the over these next 5 months, this is the time where you completely control his fate, because you have now 30 teams that you can trade with as opposed to 20 teams that you could trade with. And so that gives him more of an opportunity, and so we'll see.
This is the Russo-Souhan Show on the TalkNorth.com, the podcast network. We have great co-hosts throughout our lineup: Jeff Diamond, Roy Smalley, Tim Yoder, John Krasinski, who's Michael's teammate at The Athletic, Cheryl Reeve. Check out the network. We appreciate everybody's listened so far. Also want to thank Twill in the Edina Galleria, our longtime sponsor, the place I shop and spend my own money all the time.
Jim usually doesn't like to shop for clothes. I don't like it when he shops for clothes either, because he used to buy stuff I'd want to throw out. That's why I'm so glad he's found Twill in the Edina Galleria. He likes shopping there because of the comfortable environment and the friendly staff. He finds clothes that actually fit him properly and are high-quality brands that will look great for years, whether he's golfing or working. Our favorites so far are Peter Millar, Johnny O, and Barber. We spend our money at Twill because we love the clothes and we love the no-pressure shopping. Drop by Twill in the Edina Galleria for the best shopping experience and best clothes you'll find in the Twin Cities.
So we'll talk about the incoming players on the last couple of trades, but tell me about ending up on this. Well, just tell me about your life lately, because you go to Costa Rica. You told me you spent a night in the hospital. You sat down with Mayor McGuire and you fly back with Brad Hunt. You've had quite a week.
Yeah, I have. I mean, first of all, Costa Rica was awesome. Went to my cousin's wedding down there. Absolutely gorgeous this time of year. 90 degrees, mosquitoes everywhere, but no wind. Holler Monkeys, this resort we stayed at, absolutely off the charts. It's called El Mangrove. It's in the Guanacaste region, Marriott property, by the way, which made it even better. Highly recommended if you go down there. And I think Delta has non-stops down there a couple times a week. So,
wow.
I unfortunately took the days I had to go through Atlanta. And I think that's why I wound up in the hospital, because flying home, woke up at 4 a.m. Central Time, by the way. Woke up at 4 a.m. Costa Rica time and had an 8 a.m. flight, I think, to Atlanta. 4.5-hour flight there, had a couple-hour layover. Then it's almost a 5-hour flight from Atlanta to Vegas. So essentially, by the time I landed at 6:25 Central Time, so 4:25 Pacific, I've been traveling for 13 hours. I get off the plane, and I'm walking up the jetway, and all of a sudden my calf starts to cramp, and I can barely make it to baggage claim. I'm just limping the entire way, like in beyond agony. And I get home. I get to the hotel. I'm like, I'm getting texts galore from all the people in the Wild traveling party. All right, here's what we're doing tonight. Come meet us. And I can barely walk. And so now I'm getting concerned here. I mean, how the heck what did I do to my leg? And I start, so I Google, which is my first mistake. I Google calf cramps after long flights. And the first thing that comes up is deep vein thrombosis, DVT.
Oh, God.
And now I start reading about deep vein thrombosis and how the symptoms I have are pretty much what's going on there, and that if it basically what it is a blood clot after sitting for long hours after plane ride.
Yep, I read all about it.
And it masks itself as a pain in your calf. So now I'm convinced I'm dying. Then I start, then I go to WebMD and I start reading more about DVT, and I read how, like, if these blood clots shoot up to your lung, you can have a pulmonary embolism. If it shoots up to your brain, you can have a stroke. And now I'm like, all right, well, that's not good. So I go on my new health insurance website. I go for the first time in my life. I go to the nurse 24/7 line. They call me in Vegas. I give them my symptoms, and the guy's like, get yourself to a hospital.
Oh, Lord.
So now, yeah, this is great. So I
got to
Uber
interrupt 1 second, Michael. If a blood clot from your calf shoots up to your brain and causes a stroke, is that listed as an upper body injury or a lower body injury?
It is an upper body injury only. It will quickly probably turn into a no body injury.
I just wanted to clarify. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
It wouldn't end well. So anyway, so I get into an Uber and I go to the Sunrise Medical Center, which is off the Strip behind like the down, behind the Hilton off the.
Tell me about the people you saw there.
Well, I walk in there and. I mean, there's got to be 100 people sitting in the waiting room. And the first thing I see is a little girl that throws up in a bag. Oh. And I'm just like, there is no way that I'm going to get seen here. And so I get back in the Uber. Same Uber driver picks me up, by the way, which was hilarious. And I go to this place called Elite Medical Center. And it's basically 3 minutes from my hotel that I was originally at. I passed it on the way in. It's a 24-hour emergency room that they just built recently in Vegas, right off the Strip. So I'm there. I got Lepantis blowing my phone up, basically saying, "Hey, we need to make this fantasy trade. The deadline's in 20 minutes." I'm like, I'm dying. Like, I finally made the worst trade that I possibly could make with him just to get him to leave me alone. I get to this place. It's immaculate, by the way. No waiting. I go in there. I see the doctor. He checks me out right away, and he's like, I don't think you have DVT because you're, basically like there's a ton of symptoms for it. One I definitely had, but the others I didn't. Like my calf, my leg wasn't red. It wasn't warm to the touch. It wasn't blown up bigger than my other giant calf, by the way. And so he's like, but either way, they give me an IV of basically a mix of painkillers and electrolytes. They do a full blood workup. They prick my finger. They call in an on-call ultrasound lady that comes down there. 4 hours later, he walks in and goes, "Okay, good news. You don't have DVT. I think you have just a pulled muscle." So I spent my night in Vegas on this gurney of this like immaculate hospital, basically. Probably spending a fortune because I'm not positive that Blue Cross even covers this place.
Oh, my God. Did you get Marriott points
to find out that I have a pulled muscle. And I still can't walk. I mean, like, let's put it this way. I went out and met the broadcasters last night, and we went to this Italian restaurant. I was walking across the giant highway here by the arena, and I walk in there. I'm like, "Yeah, I just limped here." And Greenlight goes to me. He goes, "Yeah, we saw you walking across the highway. I couldn't roll down the window fast enough to scream at you." Like I was just like, I look like Igor from Young Frankenstein.
What? I don't know this is a really good Russo hypochondriac injury. I still don't think it's as good as hurting your finger pulling up your sock, Bill.
No, that one hurt. Yeah, that one hurt too. So, you know what? The story gets better. So the next morning, this is even more embarrassing. Okay, I spent all night in the hospital to be told I have a pulled muscle. And then the doctor's like, "I'll write you a prescription." So he gives me the prescription. He gave me a prescription for ibuprofen. Okay? Like my pain wasn't even good enough to get an opioid. He gives me an ibuprofen prescription for like 800 milligrams. Okay? So the next morning I wake up and I limp to the sink and I'm like, "Well, I haven't got my prescription yet, but I have over-the-counter ibuprofen. And they're 200 milligrams. So I wake up and I take 4 ibuprofen. Okay. So now I decide that, all right, I'm going to go walk to the CVS, limp to the CVS, and get myself some icy hot and the prescription filled. I'm walking to the place and I am just getting sick. Like I'm convinced I have the flu. I feel like I'm going to throw up. It's 50 degrees. I'm sweating through my shirt. I'm like honestly ready to keel over. There are Wild fans everywhere. I'm like literally, I'm not kidding you, literally hiding behind poles because I am such a wreck that I don't even want to see Wild fans. Like I'm not kidding you. Like I'm limping, I'm sweating, I'm ready to hurl, and there are Wild fans everywhere, like Russo, and I'm like hiding behind poles so I didn't have to face this.
I can't wait until Russo Slacks gets hold of this material.
Yeah. And I'm so embarrassed of what I'm looking like right now, and I'm so concerned that I'm going to like throw up on some of these shoes that I have absolutely, like, I'm hiding from people. So I get to the CVS,